Chris.
Thank you.
Police in Sudan have fired live ammunition at mourners outside the home of a protester who died after he was shot yesterday on the streets of Khartoum. There's growing international outrage at the brutal crackdown on protests against the Sudanese president, Omar al-Bashir, including the case of 57-year-old Yasser Ali, who was seriously injured by a sniper. From Sudan, Yusra El-Bagir has an exclusive report on what happened to a man who ventured out on a protest on December the 25th, got shot, and who's now being held in a security hospital.
They come for you in the middle of the night.
We hear a very, very strong knocking on the door. When my sister opened the door, a group of people in a very, very aggressive way, they enter the house with machine gun and they are covering their faces.
Armed government militia are caught on camera sweeping through residential neighborhoods in Sudan. Hind's home was raided in just the same way.
When I said, show me the warrant or show me your identity or anything to show who are you, actually he laughed. I have a power and I can do whatever.
It's part of a terrifying process of targeted arrests and disappearances designed to cripple the opposition.
Then when he rushed here, he said, we want this man, now.
The militia's target was Hind's husband, Yasser. An activist, he's only just returned to Sudan to visit his dying father. Once here, he made a fateful decision to join in citywide street protests on December 25th. But the day turned violent. In the ensuing chaos, Yasser was shot and badly wounded. He gave an anonymous interview from his hospital bed, but for a split second, his face is visible.
People asked me if my injury was caused by the army dispersing protesters at ground level, but I think it was a sniper. My condition, the CT scan and the angle of the shot show it was fired from higher ground.
Channel 4 News has obtained X-rays for some of the gunshot victims. This one is Yasser Ali's. A bullet has entered at a sharp angle and is lodged between his lung and spine. Doctors told me he had stabilized, but that the bullet should be left in place until he could seek specialist treatment abroad. But Yasser had become walking evidence of a regime shoot-to-kill policy, so the authorities put him on a no-fly list. Then they abducted him.
He said, we want this man. Just like this, we want this man. He was laying in this bed, and then I said, this man is injured, how you want to take him? He said, no, I know that he was injured, and we're going to take him, because I have an order to take him. And then I rushed to see where you were going to take him. He said, we can't tell you anything, just he has to go with us. When I looked to the car, there is no plate in the car, no license, nothing. It's just a wide, big car.
These kinds of targeted arrests and disappearances are now happening around the clock. When the faculty of the University of Khartoum staged this low-key sit-in, the police moved in and immediately detained the organizers. This document apparently lists the dead, wounded, and detained. It was compiled by opposition sources. But when you look at the details, especially people's jobs, it becomes clear that the government has a strategy. They are systematically arresting Sudan's intelligentsia.
They are targeting, at the moment, community leaders, professionals, political leaders, even future generation students and youth. It's an ongoing process to threaten and frighten those who can lead the community towards change and those who can lead the community afterwards.
Khartoum now feels like a city under siege. Uniformed military forces are everywhere, ready to counter demonstrations. Meanwhile, shadowy plainclothes security officers have continued suppressing the professional classes.
After the security forces' harassment began, we journalists focused on social media instead. Reporters used social media to publish the news they couldn't cover in newspapers.
Journalist Yasser Abdullah thought moving online would make things safer. Then, government militia raided his and Sudani newspaper offices.
White jeeps pulled up, full of civilians armed with Kalashnikovs. And one of the gunmen fired 2 shots into the air. Then they started to beat me up, and the beating was a really bad one.
With the press muzzled, the world is relying on footage from ordinary people's phones. But it's very risky. As we drove, a man was attacked in front of us for trying to film on his mobile. In this footage, 2 women are filming the police with a group of bloody demonstrators. Suddenly, they're spotted and have to run for their lives. In this clip, the person filming catches a group of militiamen brutally beating a prisoner, then throwing him in an unmarked vehicle. Seconds later, he realizes the gunmen had spotted him and are scaling the walls. And then the footage cuts off. Back in Khartoum, sniper victim Yasser Ali has now been moved to a hospital run by the secret police. His wife is terrified the